This is Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, the Channelnomics podcast that connects you with channel chiefs, thought leaders, and executives about what it takes to get the next generation of tech to market. Here's your host, Larry Walsh, the CEO and Chief Analyst of Channelnomics.
Hey, thanks everyone for coming back again into checking out Changing Channels. And as I said, I'm Larry Walsh, your host. And, it feels like I've spent a lifetime studying the channel. I know that if 2020 counts, then that is 2 lifetimes. Coming into this year, we had some good news. And that good news is, according to our research, you may recall we talked about this in one of our previous episodes, is that the majority of channel professionals and channel chiefs see a lot of growth opportunity in 2021. If you look at the data year over year, you wouldn't even know that there was all the economic disruption caused by the pandemic last year. Somewhere north of 70% of channel professionals expect to grow their indirect sales to grow by at least 5% or more in the coming 12 months. That's pretty good news, considering that there's still large parts of the economy in the US and Canada and Europe that are still hugely disrupted by the pandemic conditions. But here's the thing, is that even with this level of optimism, 5% growth or better, which even by the most conservative estimates of the market watchers is about 2x what the technology segment will grow. Even with this optimistic outlook, a lot of channel professionals are under pressure to demonstrate the value of their organizations, of their partnerships, of their partners in the field to their management. And we hear this all the time. There's in the military community, they always say you don't want to fight a 2-front war. But channel chiefs are often finding themselves in that exact position. They have to constantly sell their value and their value propositions to their partners that are out there interfacing with the market and the customers. And they're also forced to sell their value propositions and their worth to their own management and stakeholders. And this is one of the things that we hear constantly, is that if you're going to have a good channel program, you have to have top-down support. But in our research, we asked this for the first time in our Channel Chief Outlook report, what's the level of pressure you're under to demonstrate value? And 22% of channel chiefs said they're under high pressure to demonstrate value to their own management. So we thought it'd be a good idea to actually tackle this topic with somebody who has a lot of experience in demonstrating value to management and getting that top-down support. Our old friend Frank Rauch, who is the global channel chief at Checkpoint, one of the original and biggest security technology vendors in the market. Hey, Frank, thanks for joining us on Changing Channels.
Hey, Larry, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Look, I couldn't think of anyone better to have this conversation with. I want to just start by letting people know a little bit about you, though. You've been at Checkpoint now for a little more than a year, haven't you? Or it's been
2 years, believe it or not.
Has it been that long?
January 10th, 2-year anniversary.
Geez, wow, time does fly. Again, 2020 counts as 5, so we could say it's 6 years. You can get a gold watch now, right? So what is, first, how's the market look to you? Because as we said, you and a lot of your peers are showing a lot of optimism looking forward. Do you share that optimism?
Yeah, we do, Larry. And really the optimism is fact-based. It's not really hope-based. So when you look at the optimism, many things have changed over the last year. And that may be the understatement of understatements. But a lot of the trends, a lot of the dynamics played very well to what we do. And it's not just what we do, it's what others do. But when you look at it, people wanted to be able to get out of data centers. They wanted to be able to migrate to the cloud. Obviously, security was top of mind. People took advantage. Unfortunately, taking advantage of a pandemic really heightened the security. There's been well-known attacks. There have been so many smaller attacks. You don't have to just look at Sunburst. You don't have to look at some of the companies that affected, just the little day-by-day things. Then all of a sudden, everybody moved out of offices, not only in the US, really around the world. And if you think work from home is complicated for us, When you get into some of the other countries, it becomes really, really complicated. So, when you put all of that together, yeah, there was opportunity for us. But you know what? There was opportunity to be able to help too. And it's something I don't want to diverge here, but really, when you look at it, it was kind of working for the greater good. It really was, because in addition to the examples, I mean, literally the largest transport company in the world needed equipment overnight to be able to keep the planes, the trucks, going. People had to transfer their workforce from building automobiles to ventilators. Yeah, so it was a little bit of everything. But it was a catalyst for growth. And then when you look forward, which I think is your point, is a lot of that stuff is going to continue. I mean, the world has changed, and it's probably changed forever. I'm not an expert on world change, but I do know we're looking at productivity. We're looking at what people want to do, how they want to work. They're going to continue to work from home. It's going to be very difficult to repatriate some of the workloads that end up on the cloud during the pandemic. So people will probably continue in that direction. So I think it's going to be a good environment. It's going to be a good environment for us. It's going to be a good environment for everybody. But more importantly, the world's coming out of this. We see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, and I would imagine, given that you are a channel chief, your role is to take your company's products to market with and through partners, that you see that the partners are instrumental in facilitating that growth and those better outcomes for the end customer.
Sure. Yeah, we absolutely do. Because if you just look at some of the things that I pointed out, there's a couple of trends. One, you're going to need feet on the ground. You're going to need people to be able to do the work. You're going to need people to do the work not only in offices, but either via Zoom or to be able to go to remote locations. You're going to also need bridge builders. And there is nobody better in the world than a channel at building bridges. And whether that bridge is between Checkpoint and Microsoft, Checkpoint and AWS, the bridges need to be built. So it's a great opportunity for the channel, no doubt.
Yeah. So Frank, you've been around, I'm not going to paint any age on you, but you've been around for a while.
No old jokes.
I'm not good. There is no old jokes involved here, but you started off selling calculators to the channel, which is a honorable profession.
That is not true, but let's just keep rolling with it.
Well, look, you've worked at a number of very high profile companies. You've run channels in some of the more marquee brands. In addition to Checkpoint, you were at VMware for several years. You were at HP for several years. Have you seen this though, when you describe what the need for boots on the ground, the feet on the street that partners provide, that bring the different vendors together, that connects with the customers, to give the customers the technology they need? Have you seen this phenomenon where management still looks at the channel and says, why are we doing this? Why are we paying for that? What's the value here?
Sure. Yeah. Yes. So the question really becomes why. Yeah. And it's different. I mean, when I look at, I've worked for, 11, 12, 13 CEOs, and they're all very, very different. And they all have a very different level of understanding of the channel. And you have to understand how these people grew up. I mean, they grew up with measures like cash flow. They grew up with measures of, IRR or whatever that measure would be. And all that was just really black and white. I mean, you would listen to the CFO. The CFO would tell you basically the metrics would be the same. The metrics would be extremely predictable. I think with the channel, there's a little bit more mystery and there's a little bit less understanding. And what I mean by that is, when they want to know when they put $1 in, what dollar they're going to get out of it. And a lot of the metrics can be solidified. They can be quantified, but they're not as concrete as an internal balance sheet or an internal income statement or an Intel report of cash flow. It's just going to be a little bit different. So I think the channel chief's job is to be able to set the table. And, I know we're going to talk about how you justify value, how you justify the value of the channel. But realistically, when you start defending that value, you've already lost. It happens way before then.
But okay, before we move on to that, I want to talk about what you just described here, because I think it's really interesting. Because to summarize what you just said, it comes down to the word uncertainty, is that management, whether it's a CEO or a CFO or COO, it's what you're describing is they want transparency and certainty in what's happening in the field as it reflects on the value of the business and what they have to rationalize, right? But they don't have that level of certainty when they're dealing directly with customers. So why do they have a different expectation when they're dealing with the channel?
Because it's really a different relationship. So when you think about the CEO customer relationship, basically the CEO needs the customer to buy. When you think about the CEO employee relationship, the CEO needs the employee to work. The question in the CEO's mind is, what exactly is the role of the channel? How are they going to benefit my larger agenda? But more importantly, how are they going to benefit it in a way that becomes predictable to me? And more importantly than predictable is really the word accretive. And you need to be able to set that table, as I said before.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because you've had a lot of success in doing this, is building consensus and agreement on the value of the channel and partners and their role that they play in taking products to market. What's Frank's formula for doing this? How do you get your executives to buy in on this, and not just buy in on it, but actually give authentic support, not just lip service?
Yeah, so it's different. A lot of the people that I worked for in the past, and you start out with somebody like Michael Cabela's, you go to Carly Fiorina, you go to Mark Kurd, rest in peace, Leo Apothecary, Meg Whitman, Paul Moritz, Pat Gelsinger, who's been a little bit in the news lately, and Gil Schwed. So, you're talking about a myriad of different personalities and a myriad of different backgrounds. So, the first thing is really gaining the alignment with the CEO. And it never happens that easy, by the way, because you're going to have to fight your way in the door. Or, you're going to have to get invited to that party before you can have a voice at the table. So therefore, it's normally going through the CRO. It's normally getting the trust to the CFO, maybe the COO, before you even get to it. So you have to play right across the C-suite. Once you do that, you need to be able to educate them, and respectfully, because these people may be one level above you. They may be 4 levels above you or 5 levels above you, depending on how the company is organized. So you're not going to go in there and say, hey, you know what? I'm the channel guy. I'm the channel expert. Let me show you how it's done. That's the easiest way to get kicked out of the boardroom. You won't even get another word in it. But one of the ways you can educate them is to be able to take them out on the field. And this used to be one of the favorite things that Mark Hurd and I used to do together. And we did it literally every week or every other week. We would have partner roundtables in whatever city Mark was in. And it was a phenomenal experience because he got to know not only the role of the partner CEO, but the interest, what motivates the partner CEO, and actually who they are. Because there's a big difference between showing a PowerPoint slide and sitting your CEO across from somebody that really matters in the channel.
Yeah. How effective, and again, Mark, who passed a couple of years ago, he got a lot of credit for doing some great things at HP. He also did some great things at Oracle. He was always known, though, as being a data wonk. I mean, he really liked to interrogate the numbers. Yeah, and he's not alone. I mean, there's a lot of people who sit in that seat that do.
I work for one of them right now.
Yeah. So what is it, what makes the connection between the data and the people? Because what you're describing here is it sounds, very subjective. I mean, it's not the type of thing that data guys really key in on, is having that up close and personal experience.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the story of the channel chief. It really is. So when you look at that data, you need to be able to normalize the data, and you need to be able to have credibility of the data. And what I mean by that is, the worst thing that anybody could ever do as a channel chief is to be able to go in with their own scorecard. If you go in with your own scorecard, it's almost end game at that point. What you need to be able to do is you need to be able to build that scorecard with the executive staff of the company you work for. And then you need to be able to test it externally with channel partners, because basically Mark's interests were very different to Carly's interests, were very different to Meg's interests, were very different to Pat's interests. So you need to be able to align the vernacular. You need to be able to align the metrics. You need to be able to align the KPIs so they're meaningful on both sides. And you can't let the floor move out from under you when you do it. You need to be able to stay consistent. Once you do that, you have a chance.
Yeah. Something you said, though, and I'm curious about this, is that you're not just going to walk in and say, hey, I'm the pro from Dover. I'm here to make everything work. You have to earn that time in the room and get an invitation to come in. Your chief revenue officer, your head of sales, though, has a seat at the table. Not only is there a seat there, but there's also a nameplate for him or her. So what's the difference? Because if you look particularly at companies like Checkpoint, you do all your business through partners. You look at other marquee brands out there. Microsoft is famous for saying 95% or more of their revenue goes through partners, and the list goes on. Why is it that there's such reverence to the CRO, but the channel chief has to fight their way in the door?
Well, normally, and there is no normal, but normally the channel chief does not report to the CEO. I mean, unless you're in a very small or very unusual company. Yeah. So normally the door is through the CRO. And the CRO is naturally the advocate most of the time of the channel chief, because in the world of the CRO, they're like, I don't have enough marketing dollars. I don't have enough people. I don't have enough customers. I don't have enough reach. There's no way I'm going to be able to make my number. So, basically, that's task number one. And you're bringing up a really good point. So task number one is, can you get on the same level and be in I don't want to use the word caste system, but the leveling system where you are an equal of the people that are running the geos, if you're a worldwide channel chief. That gives you tremendous credibility and a big voice with the CRO. The CRO then becomes your advocate to be able to get to the CEO. But in all cases, that might not be enough, because there's some of the companies that you mentioned that I used to work for where you have a very powerful COO, or you have a very powerful CFO. And the road to the ear of the CEO oftentimes goes through the CFO. It's complicated. It's not all the same, but you need to be able to work at it, and you need a plan to be able to get there.
Yeah. Something you and I violently agree on is not coming in with your own scorecard.
Yeah.
And look, I've given this advice to channel chiefs is, first thing is that if you're going to embark on, put together a plan, make sure that you get your metrics agreed upon up front so that everybody's on the same page. And Frank, I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it many times. You go in after the fact after there's been after reporting with a set of metrics that actually are more based around activity than they are about results.
Mhm.
So thinking about that and coming back to earning your way into the room, if KPIs, if the key performance indicators are keys, what are the keys that unlock that door? What are the things that you recommend others use into as a starting conversation? These are the KPIs we should be looking at.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll give you an example where I'll give you two examples where where I used to live and where I live now. So, when you look at the VMware agenda, the VMware agenda, and Pat did a phenomenal job in terms of getting everybody's head wrapped around this agenda. Was, hey, we are great at vSphere. Now we need to be able to spin up 4 or 5 other businesses that are going to be substantial business. So that's kind of the VMware. That's kind of the path. If you look at Gil is more, hey, we need to be able to expand our customer base. We need to be able to go from network security to cloud security, or to now what we're calling Harmony. The reason I bring this up is if you understand exactly what's important to them, and you do a gap analysis, and you understand what they're capable of doing internally and where those gaps really exist, then you match the gaps to their priorities. Then you match their priorities to your KPIs. Then you have a fighting chance. Let me tell you the opposite of what that looks like. So
this is going to be good.
Oh yeah, if you want to get launched, I mean literally in front of the room, here's what you do. Just have a bad quarter. Everybody is just sour-faced at the boardroom table. They're looking for the next victim on the agenda. And you come up and you say, hey, look at the channel. Look at it's all green. All the metrics are all green. We absolutely killed it. We killed it. I know you don't understand all these things, but with deal reg, with the joint customer call, with joint planning sessions, joint meetings, et cetera. And they just had a bad quarter and there was no alignment to what you were driving and what they expected and where they missed. You will get the boot and you will never get invited back.
Yeah. That's a really great point. It's and that's what I mean by activities. There's a lot of things that have to get done, in order to make channels work and work well, but they're not necessarily the things that are meaningful or earn that level of appreciation or respect, particularly like you said, you just had a bad quarter. I really don't care how many partners you trained. Did they deliver any results, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am curious from, in all this, so we've talked about what you and your peers need to do in order to earn that buy-in, earn that respect, earn that support. What do the partners need to do? Do they play a role in this? Do they have to contribute, and what do you need them to do?
Yeah, I think, and there's so many great examples of this. I think you need to partner, just like you need to be an active listener in a room with the CEO, the partner needs to be an active partner. Meaning that, whether you're a channel chief or whether you're a CEO of a partner, you don't want to be caught on your heels to be able to answer questions, et cetera. Therefore, the more forthcoming, the more transparent, the more proactive you are in terms of pushing information, celebrating wins together, et cetera, that credibility increases dramatically. And there's so many great examples of people. The best example that I could think of is Jim Kavanaugh over at WWT. And I know that's an easy one because it gets a lot of press. But there's a reason this guy's like number 2 on Glassdoor. There really is, because he's figured it out and he's genuine enough and he's humble enough to be able to, just really deliver the facts, deliver them in a positive way. If there is something wrong, to be able to represent it in a very objective way, not to play the blame game, not to play the victim, et cetera, and to be able to talk CEO to CEO. And like I said, When we win together, which is quite often, basically we celebrate together. And that is a very, very important part of being a channel CEO or partner CEO.
Yeah. There's a presumption here, and like you're fortunate that you have the support that you've earned from your management, Gil Schwed. I've known him for many years. He's a really good guy, really great guy, but he also expects results.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure, you've had that conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to hear the good and the bad here, Frank, is that what can you expect if you do this right? If you're talking to a new channel chief, somebody who's in the job for the first time, and you tell them, what can they expect if they do it right? And what can they expect, what is the consequences for not having this buy-in and support?
Yeah, I mean, if you, let me take it the second one first, if I could.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it right, you're going to know it quickly. And by the way, even though you're going to know it quickly, it's not end game. It's not like you don't have the ability to course correct on this. And you're going to have that learning period when you get into a new job, or when you're dealing with a new CEO, or even when you're dealing at the board level or whatever. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel each other out a little bit. You're going to understand what the metrics are, et cetera. Just take advantage of that time. And again, the worst thing you can do, other than bringing in your own scorecard, is say, this is the way we used to do it at VMware, or this is the way we used to do it at HP. Maybe that's step 4 or step 5, but it's definitely not step 1. Okay. Second thing is you need to be able to listen. You need to be able to observe. You need to be able to pick up the rhythm of the room. And I don't mean just when you're in the room that one time, the natural rhythm of the executive team. And you need to be able to find a way to be able to fit into that. And you need to be able to, like I said, on your scorecard. What happens when you do it right is basically you're not challenged as much. You're invited into different meetings. You're invited in a different way into different meetings. Not to be able to just sit there and take notes and observe, but you're part of the agenda. You'll know it when it absolutely happens. Because again, at Checkpoint, it's been very fortunate for me to be able to have a great CEO like Gil, and to be able to have a great boss like Dan, but also to be able to have a great board. People like Jerry Ungerman, Guy Geck, just fantastic people that are not only willing to be an advocate for the channel, but also be a sounding board for me. Because if I want to try something or I'm going to test something with Gil, it's always good to be able to talk to those guys and say, how do you think this is going to go?
Frank, this is really good advice. I really appreciate you sharing this with us and everyone. Now we're going to change gears a little bit, and we're going to go to our final 5.
I don't know what a final 5 is, Larry, but I'm scared.
You should be.
Yeah, I think I should be.
All right, so everybody remembers this. Our final 5 is just a few fun questions. Get to know Frank a little bit better. Let's send him on his way with a smile on his face, and maybe more importantly, a smile on everybody else's face. And as always, Frank has not seen these questions. So Frank, let's start with the first one. What we got for you here is, what's the most important? What is that one thing that most people get wrong about the channel?
It's got more than one end. No, that the word off-balance sheet workforce.
Yeah,
they don't work for you. They really don't. They can choose to work for you, but it's not about entitlement. It's not about your entitlement. It's not about their entitlement.
Right. Second one, Frank, is that you're a lover of music. You love sports, and in particular, I've seen more photos of you on golf courses than Tiger Woods. So if you've had to choose one, which would you go to, a concert or a golf course?
I would go. I would go to a concert, and I think Prince, Tom Petty have made me understand the difference between concerts and golf courses. Golf courses probably will last forever. Artists will not last forever. Take advantage of the artist while you can.
I couldn't agree more. I am still in mourning that Neil Peart passed last year, and I will never see a Rush concert again. Frank, really important question. Our third one is, you talked about the importance of not having your own scorecard, getting, buy-in. What is your go-to KPI?
What is my go-to KPI? It's hard, Larry. I'm not sure I have one. I mean, I look at a whole bunch of different things, but you try to measure partner contribution. At Checkpoint, we do that by something called inbound deal reg. And whatever it is, that's kind of my North Star to be able to understand exactly what the partners are contributing to the pipeline. But whatever it is, make sure it's indisputable. It really is. That there's a certain reverence with that KPI that everybody agrees that if that KPI is working for you, we're going to make the numbers.
Yeah, sage advice. What is the most ridiculous thing you've ever bought?
Most ridiculous thing I ever bought. Well, that covers a lot of ground. It really does. I'm going to say being ridiculous, crazy to be able to buy a bar when I never thought I would own a bar, and for that bar to be a rock and roll bar, and for that bar to be able to have live music 350 nights days a year, and to be able to have that bar that has a history of George Thorogood, Richie Sambora, Mary Chip Carpenter, etc. I never thought I'd do anything that crazy, but I'll tell you what, I did it with my son. My son actually owns the bar, and it's the best thing I ever did.
So since you brought it up, Frank, go ahead, give it the shameless plug. What is it?
Oh, so it is John Peters in New Hope, Pennsylvania, voted the best small town bar and one of the best small towns in the country. So love to see you there. It's some great music and it's great fun.
I will say this for you, Frank. I've been to New Hope many times, and I've been to your bar before you owned it, I have to say. But, I got to say, it is a great place to go hang out, especially in the summertime.
Good. So we have one more.
We have one more question. And, so, young kid comes walking into your shop, says, I want your job one day. What do you say to them?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I don't think I would say it this way to a young kid, but I think it's really what is the life of a channel chief. So everybody thinks it's a lot greener than it is from the outside. And the question becomes, and the advice that I would give somebody is, first of all, it's not always going to be a straight line. It's going to be a jagged line. And you're going to have to follow the ups, and you're going to have to follow the downs. Second thing is, once you reach a point, secure that point, because there's no guarantee you will slip below that point. And the third thing is, how bad do you want it? What sacrifices are you willing to make? Are you willing to travel 220, 230,000 air miles a year? Are you willing to give up all those nights? Are you willing to be able to make the sacrifices and not always have every day be a good day to be a channel chief?
It's sage advice, Frank. Sage advice. I'm telling you, it's like, it does. It takes a lot to make the channel happen. So, Frank, that's phone ringing. It means we got a customer we got to go tend to. That's all the time we have. So, Frank Rauch of Checkpoint, great having you on Changing Channels. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, Larry, my pleasure. It was great. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for joining yet again. Please come back and visit us again sometime soon. And as always, hit subscribe and that like button. We love to hear your comments.
Thank you for joining Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, a production of Channelnomics, with the support of our production team at Modern Podcasting. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit the like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and share with your friends. For more information about Channelnomics services and insights, follow us on Twitter and YouTube, and check out our website at channelnomics.com. Channelnomics is a registered trademark of, and Changing Channels is copyright by 2112 Enterprises, LLC.